Well, thank you everybody for being here. Welcome to the October 22nd, 2025 regular school board meeting. We will now stand and say the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please get a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Please get a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Looks like we have no public comment this evening. So we will be moving into reports. So Adrian, it's our district grants report.
All right, we're.
Oh,
Adrian show.
A lot tonight. I thought you might want to hear somebody talk besides me.
I in anyone's ways.
Right here, if I
And we have again. Okay.
Thanks. We're gonna start first with the multilingual and migrant student support, which is our Title III, Title I, Part C, and TBIP. So Title III and Title I are federal grants, TBIP is a state grant. So I invited our team, the team here, it really works and serves these students to come and share a little bit more about that. So this is really related to our support goal, particularly we're talking about students who are having access to the support they need to meet their individual needs. So TBIP is our state fund, and that is the approval that you'll do tonight is for the TBIP program. And bilingual instructional. And then federal Title III is our federal funds that also provide support for our multilingual learners. So both of these together work together to kind of help support students that we have that are multilingual learners. So TBIP is mostly staffing. So folks here are funded mostly through TBIP. And that 3 of our certificated staff members are funded through that TBIP. And then we also do have 2 ML specialists that are actually funded through K-3 funding. So a lot of the work that we've done to try to make sure that we have support for the students that we need. So we have more students that have this high level of needs. I've done a lot of, it's really worked hard. I think I'm doing a lot of creative ways of thinking about funding. And then we do have some students at MP3 and they're also supported by their SLPC. So we work with them there, those students. And just a big overview, and then I'm gonna let these guys give some more details. We have over 280 students who our multilingual learner program serves this year. And we have over 50 students that are currently monitored. So what that is 2 years after they have a high enough test score to exit, these guys still keep an eye on them to make sure that they're still getting what they need to be successful. And we have what's called a supportive mainstream program. So they're gonna share a little bit more about what that looks like in the buildings. But what that is that the students are part of the regular educational program and they're getting their English language development, so learning to speak English, as well as access to core curriculum. So same curriculum that other students are having with support is what that is. So it's not a separate or set aside program. So I am going to let these all introduce themselves and kind of talk a little bit about each building and how things work there. So the
Big
specialist.
arrow, is that?
Big arrow, yeah.
So my name is Holly Lee. I'm one of the multilingual specialists at Irene Mather Elementary. And as Adrian said, all of our students who are multilingual have access to that core content in the classroom and then also their English language development. And it can look a few different ways. So here are some of the questions that we ask when we're designing support for students. So initially, it's just what is the student's English language proficiency? And that's seen every year through their WIDA Access English test. Every year they take that. Then after we look at their actual score, we ask ourselves, is a student growing sufficiently? So on the next slide, you'll see some kind of like growth targets that are released from OSPI. So we monitor that growth. Are they relatively making the target growth that we would want that student to make? And then based on those things, what support does each individual student need? So their English language development could happen in the classroom. It could happen outside the classroom, which Sean will speak to a little bit later. And then also, what does that access to core look like for that student? This is kind of hard to read, but it really is that targeted growth model that OSPI releases. So we use this to track the growth of our students and know what is expected of that student to grow. That way we can monitor whether student is growing at the rate that we want to, and are the supports that we're providing enough for that student, while also keeping in mind that language learning kind of goes like this as we're learning a language.
Thank you, Holly. My name is Twan Matheson. I'm from the Netherlands. I learned English as a second language, and it's really fun doing this job, helping students who also learn English as a second language. So having that hands-on experience is awesome. To tag on to what Holly was talking about, we use a lot of data sheets to track the students. This is a little bit of a zoom in on 3 particular students in 3 different categories, because we provide a lot of different types of support. Number 1 support we can do is push into the classroom to help the students. Another type of support is pulling the students out of the classroom in like a small group setting. And then we also provide support through coaching the classroom teacher, co-planning, or even co-teaching as well. So those are kind of the 3 different types of supports that we that the students are eligible for. So if I'm looking at these, can you guys see this, or is it a little bit too small?
We have it on our screen.
I color coded as well. So if these are the different types of years, this is 4th grade data because we've been doing WIDA for 4 years, which gives us a perfect overview with the start of kindergarten. If the cell is yellow, then that means the student is on track. If it is green, that means that they are a year or more ahead. If it is red, then that means that they either didn't make their growth goal set by OSBI, or they are behind where they need to be based on those numbers as well. So we can see that in kindergarten, everybody's on track. Still on track over here. Their growth target for this particular student was 1. They made it with, or they had 0.9, which is so close to making that growth target. And what Holly was saying is OSBI gives us a linear growth line, but learning a language is really more of a curvy one. And so we track the data for each student, and then we base our type of support on what that looks like. So if we see a student who is behind where they need to be, and they didn't make their growth goal this year, then that gives us the decision to pull that student out of the classroom and give them small group designated English language development. The student who is where they need to be and they made their growth goal, that might look more like push into the classroom, co-teach and support the teacher with that because they're doing great. So we kind of keep track of all of the data. Then with all of that data for the growth, we base our type of support on that. So this is kind of what that looks like for 4th grade. These are the students that may have been in double red, or they may be a newcomer student who just moved here from Venezuela, for example. I have a student right now, so I'm automatically putting that student into a pull-out group because I know they're going to need that support, right? And then we base our other supports on what the data kind of tells us what the student is. And so this is what that looks like. These are all of the WIDA scores. We test them on listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and their overall score. So it's kind of a nice little overview. And then
So you can see this is one example of the data and how that determines what kinds of programs. Larissa's going to talk a little bit more about what those programs look like at the high school level. So yeah, you're cool.
Middle school in the middle, right?
Okay, I can introduce myself too. I'm Larissa Shuvalova. I'm a specialist at Median High School, and I am also a former ESL student. I started to learn English. I was a couple years older than students that are working right now. So it's very special for me too. I have some personal connection. I also have a daughter who was born here and graduated from high school. So I can see how like on another thing, like long-term English learners working here. And at the high school, it's very important to have the social emotional connection. I just wanted to say it right away. With academic support, this year we have a different class for newcomers and a different class for students who already on intermediate proficiency. So it's really helpful to have this intensive ESL instruction for the newcomers too, because they have very special needs. They only have 4 years to learn everything, and graduate from high school. If you think about also the perceptive we have for students in the middle school, they're still kind of like a children, right? A children. In a high school, it's like in 4 years, they will be adults. And also when we think about high schoolers, yes, we think about, okay, they're just young adults. So high school is actually helping them to become productive citizens, find their place in this country and help the community too. That's very important. One of the things that I wanted to share too, the good things, is that we have a world language proficiency testing. Last year was 2 testing, and we had 60 students who participated in that test, earning 160 credits. So if you put all the credits together, high school credits, a lot of them earned the seal of literacy. It's a Washington State seal of literacy that they will have on their transcript. Some of the students already using the language, the 2 languages, English and their home language, as interpreters. They work for our schools and also in Bellingham, for Bellingham School District. So they're already building these bridges between different communities. I think it's very important to learn how to do this, how to connect different communities and people. We have 2 classes for English and 2 classes for study support, academic support classes. Also, students who are already can be in a classroom with some classroom support. So we also support the students who are on a monitor status too. We noticed that last year students participated more in athletics and sports, especially soccer was very popular in Poland, and clubs. For example, the club, the Global Connection Club, is a club for, for high school students who are English language learners and by them too. So they were in a leadership and prepared some workshops. This year we already had some meetings when they presented about their culture too. So it helps us connect to different people. And also we are planning some language exchange days, is when proficient speakers of one language can give their language and receive another one. For example, Spanish language, they can give a Spanish language and receive the English one. So then there will be kind of all this platform when all of them can be teaching each other the languages. I think I'm out of time now, right? My 2 minutes are up.
Good.
Yeah.
And middle school.
Middle school a little bit.
I don't know.
It's kind of already been covered by everyone else what we do, and it's essentially the same. We attract students. Becca Roving and I are the ones that are working with these kids. I pull students who've been in the country about 3 to 5 years. I pull them for separate classes to work on their grammar and that sort of stuff, and just help them. Nobody leaves without writing a full sentence. And then Becca spends a lot more time than I do pushing into their classes and working with kids one-on-one. And she's able to work not only with the lower level students, but students have been there for a long time. And that also frees me up to work directly with the teachers. And so I get to spend a lot of time sitting in classes, watching how a teacher teaches, and then we sit down and talk. Quite often they'll ask me to come in and then I gotta, break it down. It's not you're doing all of these things wrong. It's, hey, let's focus on this one thing so that we're able to improve. Not improve. You're better able to help these ML students, and quite often other students benefit from that approach as well. So it ends up spreading out a little bit more.
And so I think you probably heard across the board, there's a lot of support directly for students, but then also support for teachers and helping the students to access the rest of the content throughout the day. Before I let them go, they have questions for these folks about the ML supports.
A few. Okay. So I noticed on the IRE information you started at kindergarten. Are we offering services to the preschool and TK?
You are.
Okay.
You want to speak to that?
Yes, if a student has a language other than English, it's an automatic, they are in the program, we offer those services. They do not take a test until they're.
The testing.
So we don't have to read us scores
Yeah.
to show you, but they
Okay.
do receive it.
That test is not appropriate for that,
No.
their students, so they just automatically get services.
Yeah.
And then secondly, with one of the data metrics you showed was 60 students, and when I counted, it was like 10 different languages that were represented. So how is software, because we have technology levies and all those fun things going around with our dollars, how is that making your job and services easier and more efficient and better for our students?
The read and write program is very, very effective. You can even I can choose a Spanish speaker, but a Spanish speaker from Colombia, so they can hear in their accent, and so that can be really effective.
So a lot of what we're doing is software based,
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
I would say that that's an access tool.
Yeah, it's an
So
Okay.
like, I think, when we talk about, one of the lenses we look at is whether, curriculum actually has a digital platform that we can then run through this access tool that will translate it for kids, for example. So do you want to talk about formative a little bit in that work that you?
Yeah, for sure. So, we adopted a new math curriculum, Eureka at IRE. I'm actually not sure.
No, we don't have.
Okay, at IRE. And so what we did was we grabbed all of the Eureka, tests or exit tickets or quizzes, I suppose, and we put them into Formative, which is a program that you can test with. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Formative or not, but it's a testing platform. And so to support all of our multilingual students at IRE, what we did is I recorded and spoke all of the questions so that the student not only can read it, but also can listen to it as they are learning the language as well. And so it's really nice to see, especially in 5th grade, 4th grade. I'm not sure about the younger grades in building A, but a ton of students are like pressing that play button. They hear my voice reading the sentence for them, and as they read along, and then they can listen to it over and over again. So that's a pretty beautiful tool, if I may say so myself, to like support the kids with that. So it's just one way that we.
Yeah. But our software has had a significant impact to the
Absolutely.
programs, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and then in the high school, for example, the curriculum we adopted, the math curriculum, has this very good translation to Spanish. So you can print all the same thing in Spanish. The other languages, when I looked as well, there are other options, but the Spanish is the best translation for Spanish. We also have a paraprofessional who is working with me, and he's a Spanish speaking. So his help is during the academic sessions. Yeah, it's a very valuable thing. And in study support classes, we have some peer support as well. So students who are very fluent, they can help others too. We have a group, like a work in a group.
Part of the thing, what parents and other students do is they also can help students learn to use like Google Translate, for example, more independently, so that by the time they're leaving us, they not only have the content, but they've also built some of those skills that they can use to be independent.
Can I share a couple
Yes,
more
please.
things? We have a program on the computer that is called Learning Ally, for example. It reads the books to the student as you're learning the language. It's beautiful software to use. Another one is Art Bookshelf, which provides books in English, but also in Spanish, and the books are identical. So students get to work on their English proficiency and also on their Spanish proficiency, because at an elementary level, we don't teach the kids Spanish. Another thing that actually happened to me today, as I was pushing into a classroom, we have this new student from Venezuela who started yesterday. And so he's pretty tech savvy, and it's kind of, he's still learning English, like very early stages. And it's really hard to express yourself if you don't speak the language. And so using tech to record his voice, and I basically can communicate perfectly with him using that technology. And so it just opens up a world of possibilities using that.
Other questions? Okay. Before they sit down, I just want to celebrate them, and I'll talk about this in the data as well later in my learning reports today, but this is just the growth over the last 3 years, and I just want to celebrate the hard work that they're doing. We are seeing some pretty great growth. So the top is students' progress, so like what Holly and Tuan were talking about the expected progress. So if this is your first year, we're not expecting that you're fluent, but are you making progress? You can see our percentage of students who are making that progress is growing, and then the bottom graph is students who are actually exiting programs, so have reached proficiency. So I just wanted to celebrate the hard work for the students with that. Thank you. You guys can sit, and then Alvita's gonna help me talk about Title I Part B. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Title I Part C is our migrant education program. This is our third year of having this program. So we had not previously, we had it long ago, I think before I got here, and we had not had it, and we applied a couple of years ago to become part of it again. And so this is, again, a federal funding program that helps our students who are migrant, and they qualify as migrant by,
They have to be, the parents need to be working in the industry of fishing or agriculture. And the other thing they have to do is move every 3 years. They have to be, that's why they call migrant, because they have to be moving. But there is students who can be migrant from kindergarten to 12th grade. Because if they move during the summer to Walla Walla, that's a qualified move. As long as they are proving that they are moving at least every three years, they can qualify for the program.
so it's helping those students. And part of this came from when students are moving, if their family's moving for work, they're changing districts. A lot of the support is around how to keep some consistency in the learning for those kids while their families might be moving. So the Title I Part C is very small for us. We have a very small migrant population. I think, what are we at, 20? No,
23 now.
23. It goes like, we just qualified a few new people, kids. So very small, so the amount of funding is pretty small. But we'll talk a little bit more about how we've been able to really leverage that to do a lot. So it partially funds Elvita as part of her time, the other part of her role, she's our cultural liaison. And then my secretary also helps, funds just a little bit of her to do all the data management. And so I wanted to just let Elvita talk to us a little bit about what this actually looks like from what's happening with the families and students.
So the services that I provide is all the supplemental, we don't work with the academics, with the students, we have to support. And the supplement of what it means is we try to take all the barriers that the kids are having for coming to school. And one of them might be like the kids sleep in because the parents go to work at 5 a.m. The kids are getting ready by themselves. So we don't see the kids at school, and I will go and pick them up and bring them to school. Another thing is food, all the resources that we have at the family center, plus for the migrants, if they want to play sports, we can pay for the physical. If the parents cannot take them to do the physical, I will make the appointment and I will pay them to make the physical so those students can be integrated in playing sports. Same thing with classes, medical appointments, vaccines, whatever they needed. Registration to any event, I will help them to register and help them with the language. That's our population of migrant is, they don't, sometimes the parents don't speak Spanish either. It's a Mixteco or a dialect. So helping them navigate all those resources that we have in the school.
And we're so lucky to have Elvita. There's a huge amount that she's able to do just by building connections with families, helping them gain access to resources that we have. Some other things that are part of this program, it's really important in the migrant program that there's a parent advisory council. So we actually have a parent group that we meet with 4 times a year. And they help us to plan what we're going to be doing with the program activities. We also have been able to work and leverage connections with the ESD and across other districts. So this summer we worked with, Nooksack has a much larger migrant population. So they hosted summer school, but also Linden, Mount Baker, and Ferndale joined as well. So all of us as a county, because we don't have enough students that we would be able to run a summer school. So we went through, and so that kind of coordination across the county. The other thing that we have, you've seen it a few different times. We have a migrant nurse that we do in coordination with the ESD from OSPI. So that allows us to have some medical services that we wouldn't be able to do just on our own. So kind of being able to leverage those pieces has helped us to do a lot of help and support for families and kids with a pretty small amount of funding.
I have a quick question. Yeah. How do we get permission, Elvita, to, like, when you go to medical appointments, how do the parents give permission with like HIPAA laws in place? How does that work?
Well, Sue is the nurse, and she will go with us and do the appointments because she's a nurse, so she has all that.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of when they are asking for, so we don't like go in and make them like the family would help coordinate.
Of course.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Any questions?
I was gonna ask the same thing about transportation.
And that's what I meant more than the appointments. I will physically take the kids from the home or school and take them to the appointments transportation. The Sue does the medical part, I do the transportation.
But I think that's such a great responsibility, and you can tell that the families trust you, because handing over their children, not only for just transportation, but taking them to such an appointment, like important things like a doctor's appointment, that tells 1,000 words. So thank you for doing that.
I think that we've, the fact that we have this cultural liaison position as well is also helps us to leverage.
Yeah.
So that's those connections and
Mhm.
supports, you know, we're able to build on that as well. And so much of it is just Elvita and the hard work that she does, so we want to just really recognize.
I was also gonna say, I mean,
Yeah.
doctor's appointments are very important, but also you mentioned sports as well. And so
Yes.
the Meridian Youth Sports Program does have scholarships that are available. And so if there's kids that need assistance, we're here to help. So.
Yes,
Yeah.
we actually help, it wasn't a migrant, but we help a family with the scholarship.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for soccer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just navigating those kinds of resources that people who maybe are in the community know about.
Yep.
And people coming in don't, and so that's a huge part of this, is just
Yep.
kind of helping them out. So great for our families.
Absolutely.
I just want to say that it is a privilege for me to work, to advocate for these families and to see what difference we make when school and community gets together to help them.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then the last two grants, we'll just have a couple of slides, but those are Title II and Title IV, and Dr. Hargle can help me if I miss something here. Title II is professional development funding, and I'll actually talk about that a little bit more, professional development, but this year we're using our Title II to fund the leadership of our guiding coalition team members. So they're meeting outside of their school days. The high school meets at 6:45 in the morning to do their work. So that stipend is that we pay for them to do that as out of Title II funds.
The Title II you can't use a Title II to just go to one conference and then be done. It is ongoing and it's
Embedded.
research-based, embedded PD that you can use Title II for. So it is it's been a good use of our Title II funds for the PLC process that we're doing for a guiding coalition.
I think it's much more meaningful because it's part of that ongoing work that they're involved in. And then Title IV is funds that are, it's sort of a very broad, whole child focused thing. Conditions for student learning is how it's called, but well-rounded education. So we've used it for.
You can use Title IV for the three broad categories: school safety, student safety. We use it it's also for, we've used it for curriculum, for music and art and things like that, and then technology. And Title IV, we received it for, I'm gonna say don't quote me, but 5 or 6 years. Each time it's gotten a little bit, we've been able to use it a little bit. They've given us a little bit more. And so it has helped. But as Adrian said, it is the most broad of the grants that we have of what we can utilize it for. And then down at the bottom, there's something called transferability. And transferability allows us to take funds from Title II and Title IV. And if we had a big project in Title I or Title III, we could take some of those funds that we weren't planning on using, or we plan to use them for this, and we could transfer them into another grant. And so for us this year, we transferred Title IV funds, we transferred Title II funds into Title I. And that helps us serve, that we've expanded our Title I, and so that's allowed us to expand our Title I services for our middle and elementary school. And when you transfer them, they take on whatever you transfer them into. They have to adhere to those grants.
So all of the federal grants have reporting guidelines.
Yeah.
They have specifics about what you can
What
spend
you
them on.
can and
You can't
can't
spend
do.
them on.
What are the measurables or requirements for funding? Or is it just, what's it based on?
Are these, per capita, are they like a student, it's
Yeah.
FTE based, I think, for
Yes.
these?
There's,
For
we don't
these
have to
ones?
we don't have to provide any documentation on our measurables or outcomes.
Oh, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, for all of these grants, there's the initial application. So there's the initial application, and then for each of them, there is a year end where you report back. And so in your initial, you say, hey, these are the measurables that I'm looking for, or that we're looking for. And at the end, you report on, did we meet those measurables? And you can't access this year's funds before providing the last year's funds in the year.
So do our outcomes have any influence on, you said we've been getting additional funding? Okay, great.
And some of that is just the federal government, especially Title IV, as more schools are accessing them. Because we can go in and choose to access or not choose to access some of them.
But you can they have transferability.
Title IV and Title II have that transferability.
So that's what we've been using.
Yeah.
But like Title III does not, or
Title III
Title III
doesn't.
has to stay there.
And Title I does not.
Any other questions about those?
Who all is on, helps with the grant applications? Just you two,
Yeah.
for all of them?
There's different,
Well-
I mean, like, so that team would help us with, when we're writing the grant, setting goals, the principals are helping them with those school improvement goals that they share with you. Those become the goals that we put into these grants. The team help us think about things, so, but in terms of actually putting
Yeah.
it into the computer, that's.
Without going too far down, there's other grants. So, Principal Doffing does CTE grant, so he handles that.
Sure.
As far as the major ones go, Adrian, okay, do that.
And Jason did some before as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think we'll talk about some of the other grants later on in the year.
Yeah.
Any other questions about any of this?
Nope.
Okay. We do, I think, for the two that.
Well, we will start with our student board representative. I'll ask Christine how she feels about approving the transitional bilingual instruction program as presented.
I feel good about it.
Can I please get a motion to adopt the transitional bilingual instruction program as presented?
I'll motion, oops, sorry, I'll motion to adopt the transitional bilingual instructional program as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Some more Adrian Samara.
I'm sorry, y'all. Thank you so much for being flexible while I was sick myself and then my daughter was sick, so a couple different parts. I'll go fast. So this is our professional development plan that I think was supposed to be 2 board meetings ago. And I just want to share some broad overviews of the different types of professional development that we're doing, the highlighted things in here. Do you remember we have a commitment to professional development for our staff? And that is something that the board has been very supportive of, that we're supportive of as a district, and so I really do appreciate that here. So it's both for our staff and for administrators. I want to highlight a few kind of areas where we think about this. Strength in instruction is a lot of what you'll hear about. So you hear about professional learning communities, those teams are coming up. That's a huge part of the professional development that we do. We have staff professional development days. So we had one earlier this month, and then we actually have one on Halloween, the learning day, those 3 waiver days, and then one more in March, as well as 3 before school start. And those are really tied to the school improvement plan work and the overall goals that we have there. So they're doing with that. Then we do have specific learning around curriculum. So our math teachers, for example, met to look at their new math curriculum. So as we're developing things, we have some specific learning around that. One thing that is happening a lot more in our buildings is that our principals, instead of using their staff meetings to talk about logistics and field trips and things like that, they're using those limited staff meeting time that we have to focus on instruction. So one thing like at the high school is happening is that Mr. Doffin is doing voluntary meetings for, hey, if you want to come and talk about the bathrooms or whatever, and then he's using staff meetings that are required for more professional development work that's actually on student learning. So that's been great. And then Irene has instructional coaching as part of what they've been able to put in, which I think we've talked about there. So a number of things around that. the support for our focus students. So you just saw is an example there of that team that's really thinking about our students who are furthest from where we're hoping that they'll be. And some of the other kinds of supports we have going on there. The ESD has been a great support. They have role-specific learning communities. So there's an ML community so that they support getting together with other ML teachers across our ESD region. Our highly capable coordinator goes to a meeting there. I have a meeting, I think like we all do. So there's some support there that they support us with. We're having a district attendance team for running that this year. I think we've had one in the past, but they're doing a lot more focused on learning about attendance.
A lot more on data and monitoring it. This year, previous years, it was kind of problem solving. And this year, we're setting up structures for how are we monitoring it. And then we're monitoring it at the start of each meeting to determine where we're going. But much more data driven.
And they had a presentation today, I think, from
Becca.
yeah, on some attendance things. So it's becoming more learning as well as just business of getting things done. And I think that's something that we're really trying to lean into. Increasing belonging is a focus of a lot of these. So one thing that our staff all have is training on the micro program that we talked about today. Like Elvita comes in and does some training. We can't even show, which is our homeless support. We have training there for all of our staff to help them know and recognize what's happening with some of these student groups so that they can also help connect families. And so that's an example of some of the sort of training that happens, not just with our teaching staff, but with everyone in the district. Another thing that I just wanted to highlight is that family conferences that we put in place, that's an opportunity for us to learn and get professional development from the families of our students. So we're actually having a chance to talk with families. They know their kids best and they can be good teachers from it. So those have been really great as well. And then it's not just our education, like our teachers who are doing professional development, but all of our teams. So all of our teams, Angie works with our secretarial team and she's doing a lot of work there. And there's professional development that Michelle has for our transportation folks. Joe has his team working on some different things. And then our maintenance staff, they have on the job training that Jay has them part of. So I think there's a lot of support for learning across the whole district.
Good. And each of our CBAs, so our teacher contract and our classified contract have built-in PD funds that staff can access. So for the teachers, it's about $40,000. And in the fall, we release $25,000 of that, and in the spring, we'll release the other 15. But for teachers, probably for the past 5 years, every bit of that $40,000 is allocated out to teachers to further whether they're going back for their masters or their board certs or what they're doing, and then are classified as a lesser amount. But what we're finding in the past couple of years is our educators and some of our classified staff are using that to go back to get their teaching degree. So it's a nice way that each of our union groups can support their membership in advancing or could be going to a conference, whatever they want to do, but they're able to access and they determine who gets it.
How much less is that per year?
For a classified, it is $8,000 total.
Per teacher.
They can, no, for a classified organization, so MESB.
The whole
So it's,
district.
and they tend to carry over, they tend not to use it. So this year it's, I believe, 10,000. Take that back. I think it's 10,000. They have 12,000 this year. But they use it less than the teachers do. So, and that, both of those are results of our.
And then the last one I wanted to highlight was just that, I think this last one focused on effective leadership and shared leadership. And so I think a large part of this, you'll see it across, is the building our teacher leaders. So talked about with the stipends for our guiding coalition teams. Every one of the buildings has those leadership teams in a variety of capacities. And so we're really seeing that building the strength of the teachers to be leaders is really helping us. And I think we're seeing a lot of teachers kind of coming up and taking on even more formal leadership roles as a result of kind of this support. Our principals are all involved in the Northwest ESD Student Focused Schools Professional Development. This is the second year we've done that. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add about that. They were here at the middle school, so we have Edmonds and Stanwood folks here at the middle school last week, doing their focus this year is student advisory type work. So they're really learning how to do that better student voice. They're the day ahead. We met today. We have a book study that we're doing. So all of our directors are doing learning together. So I think overall, we're just really helping and focusing on just becoming better at the work that we're doing.
You've heard me say this before, but Adrian, in terms of the PD and the teaching and learning, and just seeing every year we're getting tighter and more aligned, and better equipped to be addressing the school improvement goals with all the different pieces. She does a great job managing the parts and contributor.
Okay. And I would encourage you all to pop in if you have any time on Halloween and visit the staff learning day just to see what that.
And where's that being held? Where's that being held at?
We're gonna, the part that's all together is gonna be here at the middle school, I think from 9 o'clock to, also I can send the exact hours when we're all together, and then it'll be at each building place, yeah. Any other question? I think it's me again.
Yeah. So, right.
Where's Samara? Yay, more me. You ready for this one? Should we keep going? Just go. So I've shared a couple of different times, different pieces of data from last year that were, the pieces we were tracking around our strategic plan and goal focus areas. And there were a couple data pieces that weren't available yet when I shared last time. So I think these are the last ones that have become available. So I just wanted to share those out with you. So areas for goal setting were in learning, were really around tier 1 instruction and great engagement and relevance for learning. So the progress indicators that we had were about student, one of them was student academic achievement on the Smarter Balanced Assessment. And you've seen some of this data already, but we did have overall growth for students at standard and ELA and math, and then science, about the same number of students at standard, but fewer students who are down at the way far away from standard level 1. So we're seeing some nice growth across the board with students in our academic areas on the Smarter Balanced Assessment. I showed this already, but one thing that is, we've had some really fantastic, I think this is some of the most impressive growth that we've had this year is with those English learners. So that work that team's been doing is making a pretty significant difference in those students.
So if I'm looking at the data, we are seeing growth, but we're still at only 40% and 38% at grade level, at standard.
So the little orange box, if they're at level 3 or 4, they're at standard. If they're at level 2, 3, or 4, they're either approaching or at standard. Yeah, so in English, it's 51%, in math, 40. That's 38. And I don't have the state data at this point, but I think we're close to.
And this is all buildings.
Yes, that's the entire building, yeah. And I can also share, all of these are on the public facing website too, so you can also sort them by building and for the overall. One of our goals was on track to graduate, 9th grade on track to graduate. And this has been something that there's been a lot of work on at high school over the past few years, and we've seen some really great increased growth. So last year, a little over 90% of our 9th graders are on track to graduate. They passed all their classes, and that's great. In 9th grade, if you remember, I think Mr. Goffing shared this quite a bit with that. Passing all your classes in 9th grade is a really good indicator of whether you're going to graduate. So this has been a great piece of work for.
And that really is a great piece of work, because I remember being a WASDA conferences, people bragging about it, and we finally got graduation over 82%.
Yeah.
You know, they're celebrating, they're in the 80s.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember being there too, and I thought, well, you know, that's pretty good, but we were doing better than that, but I mean, 91%.
I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, there was a big to do with the group that runs the 9th grade on track, and it was when we were at 85%, and then continued to grow. Great, and they lost money on funding as well, so it's been good.
Are we still rolling that out the same concept into the other grade levels?
Yeah, so
That's
that
what they're actually doing this year.
they are, and it's no longer, like this was a grant that was funding and he doesn't have the grant this year. It's just become part of how, when
How we
high school is really looking at how they're planning their teams and how they're looking, it's just rolling that up as part of the work that they're doing, so. I
How
think
kids can retake what the policies are, they're posted on the door, so trying to have consistency across the system.
And they have goals, particularly their school improvement goals are related to this with particular groups of students who maybe haven't been here quite as well. And great. For support, some of the goal areas I wanted to highlight, we had a goal area around our student growth percentile. So what this is, excuse me, OSPI has a measure that they calculate. Basically, they say all the kids who got this score last year, how much did they grow? And there's a percentage of like, how close were you? Did you grow as much as all the rest of the kids who started where you started? Did you grow less than all the kids who started where you started? And so if they have high growth, that means that compared to other kids in the state who had their same score last year, did they grow more than average or less than average? That's what this measure is. So it's kind of an unusual measure, but it's really looking at the level of growth, which is what we're seeing. So even if we're starting out far away from where we want them to be standard, are they growing at a high rate? And so our last year, the ELA was pretty much the same rates of growth. So we have good, high and typical growth pretty there, but there wasn't much change from last year. But math, we had a really big jump. So 39% of our students were in high growth last year to 45% in high growth this year. So we had a lot of growth in math. And kids were.
And we had a new curriculum introduced this year.
At the elementary school, yeah, secondary, they did not get new curriculum, they've had the curriculum there for a few years now,
To
but
see what that looks like.
yeah, and I will say in both the curriculum and really intentional professional development across the board, I think, and those teams have been working really hard, both at the middle school and the elementary school, so I think it's really shown.
Irie, that's Eureka.
Yes. Mhm. I think that work is paying off in math there. And there's a couple bright spots I wanted to highlight. Our migrant students, so the group of students that Elvita was talking about there, this is their median growth percentile. So the measure of where most of them were. Our students last year, our median growth percentile was 40. This year's 80 for our migrant students. So that's just a group of students that had a lot of higher growth this year, and then English learners as well. We had some really nice growth in math for that group of students. So more of them are growing more. Those couple of groups. Closing gaps is one of our goals, and I will say that is still a goal that we need to work toward. So part of the deal with gaps is if everyone grows, then the gap they have to grow twice as much. So we aren't seeing the closing as much as we want, but we are seeing some good growth in a few areas, particularly with math. So when we're looking at our students with disabilities, math and science, the growth from last year was much higher for those two groups in those areas. So
What are we identifying a disability as?
So if they have an IEP,
Okay.
in this case, multilingual learners as well, we had some pretty nice growth for those and then let's see. And a bright spot here, our English learners went from last year overall 5%. Were successful in math to 12% last year. So it's a pretty big jump in students who are at standard in math for English learners. And in science, students with disabilities, we had a large jump there as well. Students at standard.
Do you know what the average growth was across all students for science?
I don't off the top of my head, but I can find it, and that it will be on that. Yeah. And then for wellness, the indicator here that we didn't have data from yet was around regular attendance, and that had been a goal. We've been working pretty well at, and if you all probably remember, but I think after COVID, there was a really across the state pretty significant drops in attendance, and we saw that as well. And Trevor can speak to that, but we've had, I think last year we had really big growth in attendance as well, so more kids being there. So that really, I think that team working and continuing to work together has been impactful. Any questions about those additional pieces of data?
I'm going back to the chart that Michelle asked about in the beginning. Sorry, I didn't want to
Nope, nope,
interrupt
you're
you.
good.
But like one of those was like 50%, one was 40%, one was 38%.
This one?
No, further back. Yeah, that one.
This one, yep.
So like, if we're half of the way through the school year, which we're not, but we're 50%, like are we gonna be at 100%? Is that how that works? Like our progress?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
These are the SBA assessments. So this is that measure that happens once at the end of the year. For third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and 10th grades. So it's
Okay.
that one test, one measure. So this would be the percentage of students. So it's not the overall percentage
Okay.
score, it's the percentage of students who were at standard.
At
So
standard,
that, yeah,
okay.
that assessment has you can be a level 1, which is well below standard. Level 2 is close to standard, but not quite there. So they call with level 2, they say they've mastered the basics of the topic, but not all of the pieces. Level 3 is they're at standard. Level 4 is they're above standard. So they're showing they know more than what the standard is. So that's those measures.
Thank you.
Any other? All right. That's enough from me.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
all.
so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you again, Adrian, that was a lot. Lot to deal with. You did great. We are going to be moving on to old business. And this is the second review and approval of policy and procedure 2020 course design, selection, and adoption of instructional materials. I would like to ask our student board representative, Eden, what she feels about this.
I think it's good. Yeah. Vote for it.
Do you have any questions from?
I did have a clarifying question. I just wanted to confirm from our discussion that the curriculum committee is separate from policy 2020. So if we were to make any.
Good.
Okay, if there are to make any decisions on that, as far as the number of community representatives within curriculum selection, that would be outside of the approval of this policy 2020.
And I'm gonna have Adrian jump in on this, but the curriculum committee is talked about in 2020.
It's referred
It's
to it.
referred to in
Yeah.
2020, and it talks about who is gonna make up that team. And so the thing we talked about today was we didn't want to have two separate procedures or two separate ways of selecting that committee.
Right.
So the selection of the committee, what the committee is made up is in 2020. But how we select that committee is not in 2020.
That is,
I think the language kind of describes the makeup, so it says like representative of this people, and it can't be more than 50% community members, I think is what the language says.
Yep.
Actually in the policy and in the law, kind of talks about that, and then it also says they'll be selected using the district's committee process. So that's what he's talking about, so like how it is selected is
Yeah.
that
That
district's
is-
committee process.
That is
And-
not in 2020.
okay, so that is something different.
That is an outside.
The actual process, yeah, for committees.
And I'm trying to determine where that is,
I know we were talking about that. Okay, thank you.
but I'll get back to it.
Thank you.
The only thing I know we talked about the opt-out procedure and like keeping it the way it is. If we're seeing folks that aren't able to qualify for the opt-out, potentially that's another conversation we can have. That would be
At
bad.
any time.
Yeah, cool. Just want to make it inclusive and make it easy to do for parents, so.
We'll talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Like deal with online as opposed to going into the school, so.
We had that conversation, so we're working on it.
Okay. Please get a motion to approve policy and procedure 2020 course design, selection, and adoption of instructional materials as presented.
I'll make a motion for the approval of policy and procedure 2020, course of design, selection, adoption of instructional materials as presented.
I can second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay. We are third review and approval of policy procedure 3241, student discipline. Our student board representative, Ms. Eden, how do you feel about this?
The last time, like, there were some gray spots we kind of talked about and went over. But then I know Logan met with you today and you guys kind of went over that, she said. Yeah, and then we talked about it a little bit. Yeah, I agree.
Recap of.
Yep, so there were two questions, and help me out, Kurt. So one was, what happens with an elementary student that may be progressively more extreme, and that the limit is 10 days on a student that is up to fourth grade. And so the approach is very much around restorative practices and including the family and how we would actually work with trying to help them correct their behavior. Whereas 512, you have the matrix that actually describes all the discipline aspects that could occur based on what's going on there. Then the other piece was around having the board be a part of the process for an expulsion determination, and on the other side, the appeal piece, not just the superintendent. And so what the policy states is any entity should be, that's not the superintendent in this case, so the board would not be a part of determining discipline and doing an appeal. So it would be one or the other. And as it's written right now, the board would serve a purpose if there was an appeal. So if someone asked to come back early and my determination was no, and they decide to appeal, then it would actually go to the board. Which would be pieces that we talked about.
So I have another clarifying question on that one for sure. Again, my greatest concern is what was listed specifically in the policy as it pertained to felonies and weapons. And that is student safety, of course. And my understanding is from how it is written, that the board would only be involved if the parent requested the student return, or there was some kind of, or student requested, there was some kind of an appeals process.
Right.
We would approve or deny an appeals process. Or continue.
You'd be the determining body. Yeah.
What, I guess hypothetically, what happens if you like what's the process for you to determine, yes, this student has gone through the proper procedures to be able to be led back into the school? If there was some sort of assault or weapons charges, something like that.
Sure. So I think hard to speak to a specific situation or a circumstance without going, but anytime we would have a circumstance like that, we would want to be talking with the family. We want to be talking with whatever has happened with the students since they engaged in that behavior. Oftentimes, when you're dealing with a weapon, you're also going to be dealing with law enforcement. So there may be conditions that wouldn't allow them to come back because they may be dealing with that aspect of it. We'd also be talking to the school. We'd also be sharing with you what I'm contemplating, so it wouldn't be done in isolation. We would be going through a process and making sure that, you know, this is what I've heard, this is what's been brought forward, and this is what I'm planning to do. What's your feedback?
We've also consulted with our attorney to see if this met the criteria, and so we're getting feedback from our attorney as well.
I think the gray or the concerning area in the policy was the way it is written. It specifically did say, superintendent discretion. It did not say that there was a process in place where it would actually be communicated with the board in any capacity.
Yeah. Well, it's written that way. That is the role of the superintendent in administering the district, but I would engage in a process.
That is the case, then we can move on. Can I please get a motion to adopt the third review and approval of policy procedure 3241, student discipline as presented?
I make a motion to approve policy and procedure 3241, student discipline as presented and detailed in the attachments.
Now, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. Now the party starts. It's Daniel time.
Right. And celebrates tonight. See what's up first in the slides. Okay, well, I guess this is a win too. So we started, enrollment was down 11 in September. We gained 16 kids, in the core program, 2 in MP3. So that's pretty big. Special ed also gained some students there, as was anticipated. We're filling up the classrooms in the ECAP program. And, we got running start, and dropout reengagement, is going as well. October compared to budget, we're up 5, in the core program and 2 in, MP3. This is a bit hard to see. So, October is probably, workload wise, the craziest month I have. It's a lot of nights and weekends. There's a financial statement deadline for the F-196. It's, this Friday. And then coming into town, to do all the meetings and everything, I try to get it done the week before. So I submitted that on Friday. That went in, got reviewed by the ESD and passed the review. And I've just been doing the final certifications this week. Just got it certified this afternoon, so we're good to go there, which is very exciting. There's a couple more reports that are due at the end of November, but now it's gonna be kind of catching up on the other aspects of the job and whatnot. And looking at, and as I've talked about quite a bit, financial stability has been my biggest focus over the last couple of years. You know, when we had that scare with the septic system at the high school and then the windows, that kind of really brought to light that, you know, if we did have a major event, we didn't have enough fund balance to be able to cover something like that, and we could get into trouble and, you know, be one of these districts in a binding condition. So we set up procedures at the beginning of the school year, in 24-25. Really being very cognizant of any additions that we made post budget, comparing those to revenues, if they're funded. That has gone very well. Lots of support from James and the rest of the executive team. And just jumping to the bottom line here, we have an ending fund balance at the end of 24-25 of 3.7 million. Which is actually getting up to our target of, you know, where we want to be to feel comfortable that if something,
10%, right?
that's about almost 10%. So it's about 10%. And so that's really where you want to be if you're a healthy district. And so that's huge. That's, I mean, a big weight off my shoulders to get to that point. And just the way that we're budgeting now and, I just feel very confident that we're in a good place. So that's huge. So jumping into this report here, hard to see it. I'm just gonna like get real close. And you guys can kind of listen along, but so we started the month out with a beginning fund balance of 2.9 million. I want to point out a few things. The local property taxes, we came in $300,000 more than where we budgeted. And so during the pandemic and shortly after that, our collections dropped from about 99% to about 95%. Well, in 2024, we collected back up to 99%. And we've been collecting on those years, you know, where we had the shortfall. And so that was a pretty big gain in our revenues for the year. The apportionment, we were up by about 180,000, transition bilingual,
we were up by 100,000. Transportation was up by 186. So it was a good, revenue year for the school district that helped bring up that fund balance. We did a very good job in budgeting to take advantage of our indirect rates for all of our grants. And so that, was very positive for the district as well. And if at some point you're examining this report, you could see that so the numbers that start with a 4, those are all state revenues. And then the numbers down here that start with a 6, those are federal. And the 7, those are local, so it's usually local grants and things. So August is a big revenue month for the district, like a lot of the funds come in right at the end of the school year. You have the federal grants because they're reimbursement basis. You end up taking in 2 months of revenue in August. So like in September, we run our expenditures, in October, we claim for those. So in August, when I do the claim, those are the July monies. And then September, those are August. So you end up with 2 months of revenue at the end of the school year that gets accrued. So that kind of boosted up in August. And then you also have all of our invoicing grants, or most of our invoicing grants are quarterly. So you end up with that quarterly invoice at the end of the year. So the revenue side of the equation was very favorable for us. And then on the expense side, our payroll was down in August too. And our accounts payable for kind of all of summer trended lower than we have in past years, where we've just been making a very constant effort on spending. I mean, it paid off. I would not have expected us to kind of reach our target for fund balance. So,
I think the ending fund balance was 2.8, wasn't it? Yeah. Earlier in the year, did you say 2.8?
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, I was really hoping we'd surpass 3 million. That was kind of my goal, and to get to 3.7 was huge.
And I would echo Daniel. I think the processes that the teams put in place, what Daniel's been able to share, how we budgeted, how we closed out this year. Even right now, our post-budget ads are pretty limited. They're pretty low, and we haven't been able to do that in years past. And so, yeah, it's been good.
Maximize resources, staff, everything.
We are running very efficiently.
And we're strained in a lot of places.
We're strained.
We're also.
That's our, this is here, but is, when you look at the strain, and is some of this going to be allocated to that, or are we holding tight to this 3.7?
Well, what you don't want to do is spend one-time money on ongoing cost, right? So.
And all the indications are it's not gonna get better yet, so I think we're gonna hold tight, and we're trying to support everybody as best we can, but that's the pinch we're all in, is how do we continue to move forward in a way that people still feel valued and supported and pay our bills and stay healthy.
Yeah.
What percent of schools in the state do you think are this healthy budget?
I don't know, maybe 20%.
I don't know, I think we could speak more to those who are in binding conditions and who are struggling, but that's what's.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I think really the key to staying in a good position is budgeting. So you're spending within your needs. So looking at what your revenue projections are, and then building your programs based on the revenue that you actually have. And then, making adjustments as you need. If you get more students in or something that brings in revenue, you spend that revenue to support those students. But really just keeping that, just staying within your means like you would have been your personal budget, I think another really positive thing that came out of this current fiscal year in the budget is how we approach the special ed department. And that was an area where we would try in budgeting to just be very conservative and say, okay, well, we're not gonna. Well, best case scenario, we won't need as many student specific paraeducator supports and things of that nature. Where we tried to take a very realistic approach and say, okay, well, we've been doing this for years, let's see, what do we actually think we're gonna have and how are we gonna budget for that? And we've had some needs arise, but we budgeted for those needs. And that's what's helped us in that post-budget ad process this year, where we have been able to keep it pretty minimal. And questions on the general fund? But yeah, just feeling a lot of gratitude for the support that I've had and for the good job that we've been able to do. This is the budget status report, and for the general fund, this is just less detail than we just went over. I did want to speak to the capital projects fund a little bit. We have an ending fund balance of $2,240,000. And so that's made up of a few different things that we have kind of the carryover our technology levy. So as we're bringing money in, it's committed to that purpose and stays there until we spend it. And Joe has a very specific plan. We're trying to build up a little bit to do the next rollout of devices. There's 1.15 million in early learning facility. And we have 197,000 for it's earmarked for increased classroom space, and that's all money that came from SEPA mitigation fees. So we're starting to get up to that point where maybe we can add a portable or something. Getting close to there. Now you can also, if you have any building project that's also adding classroom space, you can attribute money towards that. So maybe we can use that for one of our upcoming projects. And then we have 267,000 that's uncommitted. So that's kind of like a little bit of the rainy day fund that we have for the capital projects. That's pretty low. That's lower than I would want it to be, or maybe, back in the really healthy days, we would move some money over from the general fund to the capital projects fund, so we could kind of build that up. So that might be something 5 years down the line, something as school finances get a bit healthier, something to consider doing again. Then we have any questions about capital projects? The next fund that I wanted to take a look at is the transportation vehicle fund. So we get all the money that comes into this fund is depreciation revenue. So as we buy buses, they go on a depreciation schedule for like the base value of the bus. And then over the life of the bus, we get money back to buy more buses or replace buses. So we got $277,000 that's paid at the end of August every year. And we also purchased one bus throughout the year. It was $145,000. And so right now our balance is $598,000. And for the TBF fund, we're actually right exactly where we need to be to replace the buses as they're coming off schedule. They're coming, the lead time on buses is at least 1.5 years right now, so they're coming in a bit slower than we would want them to. But we're trying to replace 2 buses every year. We have some more on order ready to come, and we're getting ready to do our next order probably next month.
Can I share one of these two? We had new legislation that also makes our motor pool vehicles eligible for the depreciation. So essentially, we get 13 years of payments when we receive a bus, and then it makes sense for us to get rid of that bus after we're not generating any funding, right? Well, we haven't been able to generate funds for motor pools. So when we think about motor pool being the 9-passenger vans so now we're able to do that. We're also able to charge mileage for that. We haven't been able to before. We get from that elsewhere. So it's good,
Yeah, and when we were having pretty good financial times, kind of the MP3 boom, we were replacing a lot of those vehicles. And they've kind of been aging out now, and for the last like 3-4 years, it's been on our list to wanna buy some more, but we just haven't had the funds to do it, so this will be helpful.
Michelle Pellis does a really nice job managing the depreciation and the purchasing with Daniel, so. Very cool.
That's it for me.
Want to win?
Yeah, a bunch of wins. It's
Hey, the
pretty
Mariners.
awesome.
Yeah, don't bring that up. Oh, it's going just fine.
To come a little
Thank you, Daniel.
on Tuesday. Thank you, Daniel.
All right. Do not have a ton, as I was out on some of the time in between here, but I definitely want to make sure I highlight our principals and our leaders in our buildings. Nate's here tonight. Thanks for being here, Nate. Just, it's just a great team. And when we talk about the way that things are happening with achievement, it's really them subscribing and working together. They're pretty competitive. And so they're driving each other, but they also have a good time together. So it's a big combination. So yeah, that's good.
I really love the post when I saw this.
Yeah.
And I love all the smiles, so love seeing it again.
Yeah, it's really good.
I had an opportunity to chaperone homecoming with Rob, and he's killing it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he's really doing a nice
He's
job.
really engaged and high energy and really does well with the students. My student is a big fan.
He's got a real I'll call it disarming, his disposition, right? But, he also relates well with kids.
Loves it. She loves to be out there in the mornings greeting students. It's
It's a good team.
a lot of good energy there.
Yeah, Charlotte's good.
Yeah, it's been great. They were great.
So this is the UW Cell ESD Leadership Academy, and this is what Adrian spoke to a little bit. And this time it was hosted, Robert hosted at middle school. And so we had, the different groups that came from Stanwood and Edmonds. And I think Lakewood was there too. No, right? Too many? Okay, maybe Lakewood dropped. But what they did, there are learning walks where you can go out and see what's going on and make observations and talk to students, but then there are also fishbowl interviews that you can host. And so, what happened here is Robert arranged for different groups of students at different grade levels to come in, and we had, are there 20 principals?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's quite a few around the room. And so there's that dynamic, but just the questioning about, what's successful to you? What makes school successful? When you're struggling, what's a struggle that you have? And, they talk academically and socially, and, they talk about the dynamic of having 22 or 20 adults around the room. And so it was really great because it's all about how do you get a clear sense of what's happening in your school or in your district? And you can't just take one aspect. You can't just look at achievement. You also have to get student voice, and you also have to give them an opportunity to have agency to share what's going on. And so that's a lot of what this particular meeting was. Cool. Yep. Yeah. And then we had our superintendent's advisory group meet at MP3. That's all I'm going to share, Eden. You'll be able to share in a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, we had a good meeting. And I didn't bring any of the notes, so if you want to maybe share a little bit what was in your notes, I'm sure you already have that plan. But we had a good meeting, and we used the lunchroom, one half of the lunchroom at MP3 to convene. And then just some other things, and again, because I was out September 27th is where I'll start, so we have the dedication for James, and just the legacy that he's left for the community. And then the All Hands Wacom Summit, that was in the Ferndale Events Center, talking about how health and opioid crisis and incarceration and different social issues are all related to the health of a community, and different people who work in different areas spoke and talked about that connection. We also had the WASA board meeting and fall conference that was in Tumwater. It was all about AI. Looking at how AI is coming into schools. And even aside from how we handle digital
information, the tools we use are having AI incorporated, whether we want them or not. They're just being updated that way. So a lot of discussion and talk about that. And then in October, met with Representative Santos and Timmons. So Santos, you may recognize that name. Tomiko Santos is the chair of the Education Committee with the House. She's the one that wanted to kill TK because it didn't come from the legislature. It actually started from districts in the state to provide transitional kindergarten. And so what she's effectively done in the last couple of years is put a cap on how many students a district can support. So we are capped at 44 this year because we were able to support 44 last year. And so we'll be working when we go and advocate with our legislators to remove the cap because we still have kids in the community who need our support. So those are things that we'll look at. What we talked about here is what's happening with mental health. And so some of the information I was able to share is we had 4 specific mental health people. We had a district coordinator and we have 3 current, but those are grant driven through the ESD and that money is set to be gone after this year. So they want to know what our strategy is, and our strategy is we don't have a strategy because there is no funding for that. So can they work on that in the legislature? We need funding to provide that opportunity. So looks like Valley is very similar. They have 4 and they've got more elementary schools than we do. And so we also had a conversation about how it would be helpful if they could provide flexibility when they are back working with the legislature in terms of funding. So we didn't stick just to mental health. We also took an opportunity to talk about MSOC and different things that we need support for success in our school districts.
Did you just say that Zach has 4 elementary schools?
Were all districts invited?
No, they have 3.
Yeah, 4 people.
Yeah, they have 4 people. They have 3 elementary. Yeah.
Were all districts invited to?
Yep.
Come to
Yep.
this meeting?
We
I
had-
think that
Yep.
these are
So,
ones that participated.
yeah, so I think I listed Mount Baker wasn't there
Linden.
and Linden wasn't there. And then upcoming, we've got our waiver day. You heard me talk about the Limitless grant, and so it's a 4-year grant. We're in year 3 of that. That's a convening in Leavenworth on November 4th and 5th. I will leave early and be here to run the board meeting on the 5th, and then we have Veterans Day. Okay, not gonna steal your thunder.
Okay. Yes, we had our first district meeting the other week and we checked in with all the different groups from the different schools. They all said they had good turnout. And most of them have met besides Irene Ryder, but they're planning on meeting soon. And they do have 10+ members. Good turnout all around.
Yeah.
And then a couple of things we talked about for the high school was the Latinos in Action group, which was very positive. We got a lot of good feedback from that. Everybody loves Mr. Zabel. We've been over that a little bit already. No.
Yeah, Victor provided that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Victor was like,
And then our bathroom schedules and bathroom checks, which is also a little bit of a problem with the middle school. And Irene Ryder, there was like an interesting thing. One of the girls talked about like recess monitors being on their phones and stuff like that. I wasn't expecting Irene Ryder to kind of prepare, but they were on top of it. And then MP3, they're always on top of things over there. They've already met a couple times with their group. They had a lot of good things to talk about, what was going on over there. And yeah, we ended up going overtime a little bit, which we weren't expecting considering it was our first meeting, but everybody had good stuff to say and it's just good all around.
Can you explain a little bit more about bathroom time?
Yeah, they have like bathroom schedules at the high school. And they used to lock them a lot more, but like, I mean, the locker room stays locked all day unless it's like passing periods. Like a struggle for some kids, but it's like obviously to help prevent vaping and like other possible drug use and things like that. But people say it's been helpful, but that they think bathroom checks just like by teachers are more helpful. Sometimes it's hard with like certain bathrooms being locked and their schedule.
So if I need to use the bathroom, I can only use a certain time?
Or location.
Yeah.
Okay.
So certain restrooms would be locked.
Mhm.
Okay.
Interesting.
Good.
Had a general consensus of it's better, but it's
Yeah.
still also not great, but it's better.
Are there other student advisory groups within the county that you could reach out and collaborate with and see what they're doing for situations like that?
I think we talked about that a little bit, but we haven't like made any set plans yet to do anything like that, but I think that would be a good idea.
I'm sure we're not the only ones experiencing it.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's not
Yeah.
unique to us.
No,
Yeah.
I like when we were doing the dance, I mean, we were tag teaming every 5 minutes, we were doing, yeah.
Yeah.
The patrol, but that's just where, that's just
Almost like you need a person in the bathroom.
where the event happened.
Yeah. And then there was an interesting thing that was brought up about, we had a big student conference at LC. And a couple of Meridian, they have like vape detectors there. A couple of Meridian students like got caught vaping in the bathroom.
It's like a smoke detector almost, but it's.
They can't have cameras in the bathroom,
Sure.
but like they have the vape detectors in there and then a camera outside to like, that comes on once it's like triggered. And they caught like a group of Meridian students that were vaping in the bathroom there.
We actually looked at vape detectors before, but it's super hard when you have a group of people
Like who
to
did
be
it,
able to identify who will.
relying on. Workouts.
Yeah.
Struggles of high school are a lot different than when I was there.
Easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, nice,
Great.
nicely done too, and way to get other buildings excited and engaged and wanting to participate. That's
Big
your
numbers.
example there, right? They want to be a part of what you're a part of, so good job.
Okay, well, do we have any information from our board directors? No. Okay. Well, we can sign some official documents and adjourn this evening.
Day.
Thank you. Yeah.